Good evening and welcome into the Mafia cast, brought to the fans by the fans, and this is your one-stop shop for all things Bills every single week. Now here are your hosts, Mike Yanni, Ronnie Eastham, and Casey Ceda.
How you doing?
Every single time it seems like I forget to unmute now. I'm pulling a Casey. Welcome back to Bills Mafia.
I was going to hit the unmute button myself.
Now, that happens to me every single time because I'm on my phone with Twitter trying to get out a quick, post that, hey, we're live now. And I can never get it done fast enough to jump back over here and get ready to talk. And then I forget to hit unmute. So here we are. Welcome in. It's a Thursday evening. We're 2 days away from the final preseason game. Casey, how are you, my friend?
I'm so glad that football is 17 days away. Just so glad it's almost here. I can't deal with this anymore. Me, I love the initial dive into free agency and the draft and then training camp. But it gets so freaking monotonous. I understand why players get in fights and get annoyed and this and that. Because if I find it annoying, I can't imagine just how annoying they find it.
Yeah, it's like last week or Monday we had Aaron Schatz from NFL Plus, I believe, or ESPN Plus, one of the two. Anyways, ESPN, and he mentioned that ready for some real football, it gets old really quick. I mean, it's even worse than the NFL draft. When we get to the NFL draft year, I love doing mock drafts. I love digging into all the players and stuff, and I can do that for weeks on end, months even, because I start doing that as soon as the season's over. But preseason, man, a week and a half, and I'm done. I'm over it. You can only talk so much about it. So that's where we are. Next week, we'll be we'll be done with the preseason game. So next week we'll get into our 53-man projections. We'll get into our season projections. So be looking for that. But for now,
well, what is it? I mean, either Monday or Tuesdays when they have to go from 91 players down to 53, 54. Depending on the guy from England, if they decide to keep him on because that earns the extra practice squad spot. So, I mean, if it is Monday, our Monday show is going to be popping a little bit because the news is just going to roll out. We're going to find out. I was thinking about it before the show, just what are they going to do with Matt Milano? I mean, because you can't put him on IR right now, because then you lose him for the season. If they think that they're going to get him back in December at some point, then you can't put him on IR right now, and he has to take up that roster spot. So they can't bring anybody else in. It's Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have always been very good about loopholes in the rules, just like all the other GMs with all we're gonna cut you, but hang around for 5 minutes, I'll toss you $10,000. That kind of deal. So they can work the IR spots and all that stuff. And the new rules that the NFL has come out with, it seems like they're trying to counteract that. But I have no concern that Brandon Beane's going to do something. I'm just really interested as to what it's going to be.
Yeah, I kind of feel that if there are any changes or any roster moves, it's going to be more Ben DiNucci, Anthony, whatever his last name is. Brown, is it? Anthony Brown, the other backup quarterback. I think that's kind of what we're looking at. I know I keep seeing a lot of Bills Mafia talking about Jahan Dotson got traded today, I think, to Philadelphia. So Bills fans are like, oh, why didn't we do that? We don't really need a Jahan Dotson. He's kind of similar to what we already have, I think. But I really, at the same time, I don't want to take targets away from Shakir, Samuel, Kincaid, Knox, James Cook. Personally, I think we have a good nucleus of guys here in this passing offense. This offense as a whole. So I'm really not looking to dive into the trade market and bring in somebody else.
I mean, the trade market's kind of thin right now as it is. There's not really any receivers that, yes, there's Brandon Ayuk, but we straight up can't afford him. So I know Greg Thompson says anything is possible, and anything is possible, but
Yeah, anything
I don't
else.
think Brandon Beane, in the middle of not tearing the whole thing down, but salary cap wise, tearing it down just to be able to build it back up again next year. I don't think he'd want to try to bury himself more this year just to try to and make himself work harder next year and take away from what he's already built. So outside of him, I mean, there's not really any game changing, team breaking wide receivers that is on the market. So I understand the Jahan Dotson side. He's young. He was with Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett and Taylor Heineke. So he didn't have the best cast of characters. Now maybe he and Dan Quinn just got off on the wrong foot. You see that a lot with players and coaches where they don't. If you weren't drafted by them, so they don't care where you were drafted. I'll get rid of you at the drop of a hat. They don't care. And you've heard Dan Quinn say all summer oh, we're still looking for a wide receiver too. It's a straight up competition. Blah 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 blah. So for him to take jabs like that at Dotson in the to the media, that to me that tells bad blood personally, and it's not just on the field. So whether that's on both parties or Dotson's just being a smart ass, or he and Dan Quinn just don't genuinely get along, I can see the upside for him. I loved John Dotson coming out of the draft. My wife's a Commanders fan. I watch them pretty closely, and I like him. I think he has potential, and I think the potential is what everybody in Bills Mafia is clamoring for. Because outside of Shakir, you kind of know exactly what you're going to get out of the wide receiver group. We know who these players are. There's nothing there. In my opinion, I don't think there's anybody that's going to absolutely break out. Outside of Keon Coleman, exclude him from this whole conversation because nobody knows who he is. But all the veterans, Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins, MVS, all these guys, the NFL and the Bills know who they are. That's why they brought them in. So I understand the potential with Jahan Dotson. That's what people are clamoring for. Maybe we can be, he can be the best version of himself here in Buffalo, like McDermott says. But at the same time, they clearly like what they have in the wide receiver room, and I don't blame them because I do too.
Yeah, I do as well. The one thing I guess that I'll kind of push back on that, and we obviously don't know if there was anything personal between the staff and Dotson, but I kind of liken a little bit to what we've got going on over here with Boise State football. We got the number one quarterback recruit from the 2023 class.
I've been meaning to ask you about this.
Yeah, he's a 5-star quarterback. He's the highest rated quarterback that BSU has ever recruited. He transferred from USC. The public here was just crazy about it. And we also got a recruit for a receiver too, and I can't remember where he transferred from, but he's a highly recruited guy. But anyways, so everybody's like, oh, this guy is a starter. Boise State's going to be the group of 5 entry into the CFP, the college football playoffs. They just announced this week that outside of Boise, the unknown Maddox Madsen is going to be the starter this season. So it kind of got me to thinking, look, you look at Malachi Nelson coming from USC. He couldn't even get the backup job last year. When Caleb Williams left, the other guy, I can't remember his name from USC, but he's the one that played in the bowl game and played extremely well too. And then, of course, Malachi Nelson transfers. Now here we are this year. He gets beat out by a redshirt sophomore, 2-star recruit. I'm not saying Nelson is not ever going to, he's a bust. I'm not saying that. He's still young. He hasn't even done a second year in the college football. But when a guy gets traded from one team, especially on his rookie deal and especially within the division, to me that says something about him, not necessarily as a person, because I don't know him, but from a talent perspective, is he ready? Can he get it done on the field, or is he maybe not what people thought he was?
I mean, see, that's the other part of it. We don't know if it's personal or if it was just if he can't get it done on the field, or he doesn't want to do what Dan Quinn wants him to do on the field. Like that could very well be it. Maybe he's changing his position on him, wants him to, be a slot only guy, and he's like, no, I can play on the outside and watch him prove that to you. But now he's going to Philly, where he will be like the slot guy with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith there. So who knows?
Yeah.
So like I said, I get why Bills Mafia is like, oh, why didn't we do that? Well, because we already didn't have a third-round pick this past year. Now, I know we have 2 second-round picks, and the Minnesota Vikings pick should be decently high this year, and Sam Darnold starting at quarterback for them. But this is the year that Brandon Beane was building, like breaking everything down to build back up in 2025. He's not going to start handing out his building blocks just for no reason, for a could be. I think if he's going to do it, he's going to do it for what he knows is a great player already.
Yeah. I don't know that you and I necessarily share the same opinion. I do understand your point as far as it being kind of a rebuild year, and I guess in some respects it is. I do think this team can still compete for a Super Bowl, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the purging of the contracts is like it's a rebuilding year on the money side. That's really. But you can't rebuild on the money side without getting rid of some players like he had to. Cutting Mitch Morris and cutting Tre'Davious White and eating $30 million in Diggs like that. All those hurt, but also helped us in the long run. So, in my opinion, it was a rebuild year, but it wasn't necessarily on the field. It was more so the behind the scenes stuff that. Beane had his run. He handed out these contracts, and at some point you have to eat it, and this is just the year you eat it.
I saw a video the other day. Well, it's been a couple of weeks of Tre'Davious White running out onto the practice field with the Rams. I shed a tear.
It's so sad, man.
That is the worst. That is the sad. I think back to all the former players. If you've been a fan of this show for a while, I've been watching Bills football since 1988, and I cannot think of a single player outside, yes, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed back when they left in 2000, but we knew that was coming. We knew it was the end of the road. It was the end of an era. It was time to move on. There was no shocks there, right? And but Tre'Davious White is still young, still capable of being one of the best in the league, I think. But it's a long road for him, so we understood why. But to see him on another team in another uniform is heartbreaking.
So whenever I personally buy jerseys or my wife, that's been my birthday gift from her since we met. For her, it's easy. It's, it's something that I will like and enjoy. I always give her a couple options, and I always give her options of people that I'm like, they're not going anywhere. These are fundamental pieces of this team. And through this whole year, this offseason, I have one jersey left that of somebody that still plays on the Bills, and that's Josh Allen. I have Josh Allen, I have Jim Kelly, I have Tre'Davious White, and I have Stephon Diggs. And then my other jerseys I've lost to signatures like this Latavius Murray. But I was like, Tre'Davious White is never going to go anywhere. Did I expect him to get hurt 2 years in a row? No.
Exactly.
Obviously nobody did. Diggs, I just thought there was no way purely just because of the money. I just thought, brothers are going to fight just like Josh Allen and Diggs did. Me and Mike have our fights. We're not even brothers, but we're as close to brothers without being brothers. See, he just flipped me off down there. But I just thought they would get through it, and that they were going to have to get through it because of the money, and they didn't, So I got to figure out who my next jersey is going to be for my birthday. I got a couple months to figure that out. I was considering a Milano, but after this injury, it's scary. It's definitely scary being on the wrong side of 30, coming off his second, just about season-ending injury again. So. I could go Keon Coleman, but what if he stinks? A jersey that stinks.
I'm optimistic in Coleman, but I would not get a jersey right now. Absolutely would not.
My rule is never buy a rookie's jersey.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's
to
a
never
good
buy a
rule.
rookie's jersey, and to like basically my rule is like somebody who's going to be is a building block of the team that I like. Is very good to my eye, and I don't think will go anywhere anytime soon. See, Terrell Bernard is somebody who I'm very much thinking about.
I would be careful though, because if he continues to play as well as he has, he's on his rookie deal.
That is my holdup, Ronnie. I swear to God, that is the one thing I come up with the pros and cons as to why, and that is the only freaking con is because in 2 years he's going to get the bag.
Yeah, if he keeps playing the way he is. And let's go back to Milano for a second and talk about that and that injury. They're hopeful, of course, that he'll come back in December-ish, sometime in that month, which we would hope that he can. But at the same time, if Bernard and or Williams and or Andreessen and or Spector, because all four of those guys I think can play. So if those guys are playing well and playing at a high level, do you want to bring Milano? I love Milano to death. I love him, and I hate that he's got to go through this. But at the same time, it is a business. If the team's playing well and the defense is one of the top, do you mess with that, or do you go ahead and shelf him, or even if he's capable of playing?
I think that's when he turns into either he or Dorian will turn into the trade bait. I think that Bernard's going to be the one that stays. I think he is the exact linebacker that they're looking for, that they thought they were going to be getting in Tremaine Edmonds. I think he is the prototypical linebacker for Sean McDermott. And he's young enough that you can build around him, and he can coach up a younger guy now. This is his third season in the league, so he's no longer a rookie. Maybe Mike, while he's back there, if you could figure this out, how many more years does Milano have on his contract, and when can we cut him, and for how much?
Yes.
Like, what would it cost? What would it cost to cut him after this season? So in 2025.
I believe Mike will confirm, but I think it's $17 million. If we were to cut him this year, it's like $29 million.
Yeah,
he still has 3 years left on the deal, I think.
It's because we restructured him last year.
Yeah.
And that restructure was the back end of an extension that being given him years prior. So that's that can kept getting bigger and getting kicked further down the road. So it just moves.
Right, and that's the jeopardy, I guess, you run when, or the risk you run when you do that, when you're kicking the can down. Because of that, the injuries are the biggest unknown in any professional sports. Period. It's the one thing that it could completely derail a team. It's super frustrating, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Milano's played his last game with the Bills because I don't believe that to be the case.
I don't either.
But I would not be shocked if he is part of a potential trade, because I can almost guarantee you that there would be a team out there willing to take on his contract and willing to take the unknown of him returning from an injury if Spector or Williams or Andreessen can fill that role. And so far, Andreessen looks like he could be the real deal.
See, the only kicker is it takes two to tango, and when it comes to making a deal, it's convincing a team to take on a $10.5 million 30 at that point 31, 32-year-old linebacker who's come off 2 straight season-ending injuries. That's where I think the big issue is going to be, is finding a trade partner. So we've seen all-pro linebackers just go by the wayside. Look at Bobby Wagner. He was still playing at the top of his game. The Seahawks were like, bye, see ya. And he was the best linebacker for what, 12 years in the league or whatever it was. And he's still damn good. Yeah. Was Milano ever Bobby Wagner? Like, that's the question. Like, Bobby Wagner never had back-to-back season-ending injuries. Like, I just don't see somebody coughing up anything really significant and worthwhile for the Bills. I mean, at that point, I guess anything would be worthwhile if you are just trading him just to trade him to get out from under the contract. But, if Bills Mafia sees being traded Matt Milano for a 6th-round pick, He might burn the new goddamn stadium down.
Yeah. So Mike put it in here as far as the contract. It was a 4-year, 41.5, $10.3 million per year. But if they were to cut him, say this year it's $29.3 million dead cap, next year it's $17.2 million, and his current contract runs through 2027. That 2027 is a void year. So that's why, to me, I think he stays. I know they traded away somebody else and took a $30 million hit to do so. A little bit different scenario or situation for me. Milano is he's one of the guys on this team, not just the defense, but this team. So I don't see him. I don't see them trying to trade him. But again,
well, that and the
business.
It's also receiver versus linebacker. I think to just the outside world, eating $30 million for whatever he is now in the top whatever wide receivers in the game, that's still more understandable than eating $17 million for a linebacker. Everybody saw $30 million for Diggs, were like, that hurts. And that, but
Yeah.
if you do that for a for a linebacker at $17 million, they're gonna be like, God damn, that just sucks. Like that's a lot. These linebackers, it's not chump change anymore. Everybody thought it was always quarterback, running back, wide receiver, corners, defense ends that get paid money, and everybody else is kind of running the mill $5 million. That's just not the case anymore. I mean, you see guards signing for 4 years, $80 million or like $60 million, offensive guards. Those guys you used to be able to pay like with rocks and rice and beans, and then they could eat.
Yeah. That situation is going to be an interesting one. But let me ask you, I kind of want to get to the offense here in a minute, but since we're on the topic of the linebackers, what do you think is going to happen at that position? We know Terrell Bernard is locked in. That's a no-brainer. But between Dorian Williams, Balen Spector, and Joe Andreessen, all three of which have played well in practice and done well, what do you expect to see there? God, I hope there's not a rotation, but
I don't think there will be rotation, because I don't think anybody that's going to fill in is really any better than the other at pass defense, and I think that's the only reason why they would do a rotation. And if that's the case, they'll bring in a third safety and just run dime. We've got the safeties that can play box, whether that's Cole Bishop getting healthier or Mike Edwards, who's back in practice in full and coming in for Taylor Rapp and letting Rapp, play in the box, which we all know he's very good at. So I think this is Dorian's job. I mean, I think Andreessen's making a very good case to be the third linebacker, to be the next guy up, like the first guy up off the bench. But I don't think that anybody's going to take Dorian Williams' spot. I mean, we all thought Brandon Beane was nuts for drafting another linebacker in the third round.
Yeah.
But this is why you do it. Like, this is exactly why. He saw the writing on the wall. My linebackers are getting older. They haven't played 17 games in a while. I got to, and I'm going to have to pay the other one. So what am I going to do? Okay, let's start, planning for the future. And that's where Brandon Beane has always been good, at planning for the future and trying to stay and get ahead of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I think Saturday's game will be kind of telling, too, a little bit. I think all three of those guys will get some playing time. Let me back up on that. I'm not sure about Spector, because I'm not sure where he is in his coming back from the injury. But we want to dive into the offense. Go ahead.
Real quick, do you think Dorian's going to play? Because McDermott said none of these starters will be playing. So whoever
you've identified a starter.
That's what I'm saying. If Dorian doesn't play, then that's hand out. We know what's going to happen.
Agreed.
But if he plays, if he splits time with Andreessen and Deion Jones, then it's a crapshoot. It's still the job might still be up in the air, but it could also be the same thing what we saw with Terrell Dodson last year. We all thought he was vying to be a starter, and then he played just about the entire fourth quarter in the entire game of the third preseason game. So if he goes out there and he ends up doing that, then it's clearly a prove-it game for Dorian Williams, where if he plays extremely well, then he could earn himself the starting spot. And if not, then it will either be Deion Jones or Joe Andreessen.
I'm not sure what I think about Deion Jones. I've heard ups and downs for him in practice, but before we jump over to the offensive side, also I want to talk a little bit about Tyler Bass. But before we do that, let's hear from our sponsors really quick.
Hey, this is John from Game On Video Games and Sports Memorabilia. We are Rochester's premier trading card store. We have a wide selection of trading cards, autographs, and memorabilia. We also do autograph and celebrity appearances in the store. So if you're looking for the perfect gift for yourself, relative that doesn't like the Bills, or for a friend, come down and check us out at our Rochester location, 2670 Dewey Avenue, or our Hamburg location at 1 Buffalo Street. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Comments here really quick. John Robert, I personally don't think Dorian will play. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if he will or not. Like you said, if he doesn't play, then it's probably a pretty good indication that he's going to be the day one starter, week one starter, whatever you call it. Let's jump into the offensive side of the ball. Well, first, let's talk about Tyler Bass, because I don't think this will be a very long conversation. Where is your feelings with him right now?
I don't know if you know this, but I'm a golfer, and kicking and golf are very similar when it comes to the mental aspect of it. And it's very obvious to me that it's purely mental. I mean, and everybody said it, a million times. He's just in his own head now, to where it's really hard to build the confidence back up. Golf is a really easy game when everything is there's days when you just feel like you can do anything with the ball. And it's going right where you're looking, you can do anything you want. And it's not even like you're trying. It's more so you're just doing it. It's a second nature. But then the second you hit a bad shot and it snaps you out of it, you think that it feels like you forgot how to play. You end up playing like Mike, and it's your first time, and you just don't know what to do. I went through that this summer, to where I've won tournaments and on my own, and I'm a pretty good golfer, and all of a sudden I was hitting it from my TV away from me 10 feet. I couldn't do it, and I couldn't figure out why. I felt like I was doing the same thing, as I always did, but I couldn't not play poorly. I was terrible. And that's just and it's just a rut. And that's kind of, to me, what Tyler Bass is going through, to where it's a mental rut. He needs something great to happen, to where he needs to hit a 55-yarder. He's got to do something, lay smack on a kick return, something and just to jolt him back into it. Like Josh Allen says, he feels alive the first time he gets hit in a game. And that's kind of the same mentality I'm thinking of, with this, to where it's all right, now I'm ready to go. I've been here, I've done this, let's do it again. And to me, that's kind of what Tyler Bass just needs. He just needs something, just one thing, and everything will be turned around.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I don't think at this point there's really a whole lot that they can do other than roll in with him. John Roberts said he heard Tyler was 3 for 3 today. The last few days, though, he was 8 of 14, 4 of 10 from 40 yards or more. So that's 40%. Beyond 40, that should be automatic for kickers today.
Yeah, that's chip shot range now.
Yeah, but on the flip side of this, he's perfect in games this season so far. 5 for 5.
Now,
and they weren't gimmies. A couple of those, I think, were 49, 50.
Were they?
Yeah.
See, I didn't think he'd hit one over 45 yet in a game.
I'm pretty sure at least one of them was, but
Mike, look it up.
Yeah, look it up, Mike. Get on that. But to my point, though, is basically if that's what he's doing in practice and he's missing them, I guess I don't really care as long as that's not, translating to the field on game day, which currently it is not. I know there's some concerns because last year there were some struggles. And I've even said on this show that when he lined up for that field goal last year in the Chiefs game, I knew he was going to miss it. I just had that feeling.
Yep, 100%.
I don't like having that feeling for my kicker, but I'm still confident that he will bounce out of it, get out of this, and bounce back. I don't really have a choice, though, do they? They kind of have to roll with it. They gave him a new contract. There's not really anybody out there that they can bring in. And part of that, too, is even though he might struggle a little bit, he's been there now for a few years. He knows how to handle the wins. You bring in some new guy off the street, he's not going to have a clue. It's going to be whole new to him. So that's part of the issue as well.
Well, I remember when we got rid of Ryan Lindell and brought in Steven Hauschka. And they brought in Hauschka specifically from Seattle because of the wind in Seattle. Like, I remember hearing about that, and they're like, that's what was one of the big determining factors to where he knew how to handle that kind of adversity. So clearly it's a thing. And it kind of has me curious. I wonder, like, what the wind's going to be like with the new stadium, because, we see how Hard Rock's built to where the sun is only on the visitor side. And so you got to wonder if they're going to, like, what their thought process is with that. Because I'd be shocked if Terry Pagula and whoever is in charge of building, designing this stadium, like, didn't take that into consideration. Like, hey, we've got these winds here in Buffalo that, we get a good kicker, the opposing kickers are going to struggle with it. Now, in my life, I've seen the Bills lose on a game-winning field goal more times than I can like to count. So I don't know truly how much of a difference it makes, but you take every little thing you can get, every little advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a differently designed stadium than what they're playing in now, too. Winds might not even be an issue.
Right. And here come the domers. There wouldn't be wind if they build a roof. Shut the up.
Yeah.
We're in Buffalo.
Thank you.
This game is meant to be played outside.
I don't care where you're at, what city or state you live in. If football is meant to be played outside, I 100% agree. Let's get into the offense. Again, we kind of touched on a little bit with the wide receivers and whether or not the team should try to bring in somebody. I've been pretty vocal about I don't really want the team to go out there and spend bajillions of dollars again on another potential diva wide receiver. But that is also contingent on what happens this year. If Khalil Shakir goes out there and kills it, and Kincaid kills it, and Samuel, does his thing, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I don't think we need to spend that kind of money on a quote unquote number one receiver. But
I would be shocked if with those first 3 picks we have next year that we don't draft a wide receiver.
I think we would, and I would be fine with that.
I think we will no matter what.
I'm talking about free agency. I don't want to spend a lot of money on free agency in that regard.
No, I agree with you, and I don't think I come on the show and said next year we're going to be, next year we have a lot of cap space, and that's where we're going to be the big spenders. But with all the these receiver deals are going to get done. Jamar Chase is going to get done. CeeDee Lamb is going to get done. Ayuk is either going to get traded or it's going to get done. Like, you don't know who's in free agency until the day of free agency, because deals happen at, the famous quote, Brandon Bean after dark. Everything, the NFL's a 24-hour business. Everybody's always talking to everybody at all hours of the day and night. So I don't expect to be able to sign a big fish free agent wide receiver, because I don't think there's going to be one that hits the market. There's going to be guys like T. Higgins, but we already have a T. Higgins and Keon Coleman, so that's redundant. So I fully expect us to go into the draft next year with one of those top 3 picks, grabbing a wide receiver, or packaging a one and our 1 and our 2, and keeping Minnesota Vikings 2, and moving up into the middle of the first to get a wide receiver, because we're still going to be picking it back.
Yeah, and I would be okay with that as far as going into the draft with that. So far from what you've seen, Casey, from the offensive line, I know we've talked a little bit about it on the show. Where is your mind at with that? Are you comfortable with McGovern at center?
I'm more comfortable with McGovern at center than I am at David Edwards at guard. He still scares the hell out of me. I think he just does. I think he was perfect as the sixth lineman, just like Ryan Bates. It's not somebody who I want to start every game, but I am more than comfortable with him coming off the bench, if that makes sense.
He is a Super Bowl champion. He was a starting guard for the Rams. So, and not that makes him an automatic All-Star or anything like that, but he obviously
he also wasn't. He was they also let him go after that year. So that also says something to where they're like, all right, we just won a Super Bowl. We don't need you.
We're moving on.
Right. And he had a very down year that year. I remember listening to Lockdown Bills when when we first signed him, Joe Marino was talking about him, and he was reading off his stats and like his PFF grades and stuff, and like everything like just wasn't good. And I remember when we played him and when we blew the doors off the Rams the year after the Super Bowl. So they cut him 2 years after. I don't remember now.
I think you're right. I think it was the year after the Super Bowl.
The year after the Super Bowl. Okay. So, but we torched him then. So, like, that also has a bad taste in my mouth where I'm like, all right. And that was when our defensive line wasn't very good. That was when we had like Gordon Phillips starting at defensive tackle.
We did have Von Miller. That was the first year with Miller.
We did. That was the first year with Miller.
Yeah.
Miller
was before our defense got destroyed by injuries again.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That was for the first time.
that was the first time, and it's just continued ever since. Yeah.
Right.
I guess
David Edwards just worries me.
I would say there's still a little bit of an unknown, but they did look much better in that second preseason game than they did the first. All the running backs had holes. The quarterbacks were protected, even though they couldn't throw for crap. But so I don't know how much of them are going to start in this Saturday's game. You don't think any of the starting five will play at all?
Nope. I think McDermott's seen enough in injuries to where he's like, I'm not. This is not happening.
That might be true. And, I mean, shit, they might just hand off the ball 60 times and go home.
Good. Please do.
Yeah,
let Ray Davis and Frank Gore go wild.
That also gives off the field.
Same.
Yeah.
Well,
let's talk about him.
You can't.
I know we can't. What?
You can't really keep him and Johnson off the field. You can't keep them.
Just let Frank Gore handle it. He can be the every down back.
Frank Gore. Well, we have Frank Gore, and I always forget about Darrington Evans. So we can let them just rotate all game and basically see who's going to make the practice squad. That's their audition. What I'm most excited about is finally seeing Cedric Van Pran Granger. Well, I can't say finally. Hoping they give him a chance to run with the twos in this game. I know they like Alec Anderson at center, and it seems to me that he's going to end up being the second center on this team. But I still think they're going to keep Van Pran Granger around and not submit him to the practice squad. I think somebody will just nab him. They'll nab him up quick. I think Will Clapp, his concussion protocol is going to end up being the worst thing for him in terms of making the team, because he's just not going to be out there for the last, for the true dress rehearsal for the guys numbers 49 through 53.
Yeah. If you're listening to the show really quick, please jump over to YouTube. Give us a subscribe. We're trying to get those numbers up. We want to build that. Also, we have our Facebook page. You can do the same. Just search the Mafia Cast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Getting to the Ray Davis thing, we talked a little bit about it earlier this week with Aaron Schatz. But I wanted to touch on that some more here, because I've had some people reach out to me about drafting James Cook on their fantasy teams and what I think about that. And I've been working on putting together my own personal player rankings and stuff, getting ready for a draft that we have coming up this weekend with family and stuff. James Cook is pretty high. I've done a lot of reading. He's actually ranked pretty high on a lot of boards. I would pump the brakes on that. I really, really think Ray Davis is going to have a huge role in this offense. And from what we've seen, especially last week, you can see why. He runs with a purpose. Like, there's no wasted movement whatsoever. He plants, he goes, no question the direction he's going. Even if he realizes it's the wrong way, he keeps going that way. And then he tries to maybe, cut after the fact. But I love watching him play. I love the suddenness of his running style, the quick. And I do think he's going to eat very, very heavily into James Cook's workload, especially in the passing game.
You know who he reminds me of is Isaiah Pacheco. Their running style is very similar. Now, Pacheco's faster, but their running style is just similar. Pads square, pads down, and legs are just going to keep going. It's going to be a task to truly bring him down. I'm excited to see safeties and corners make business decisions against him this year because you know it's going to happen. So yeah, I like Ray Davis, and I agree. And I've been doing mock drafts because our fantasy draft is this Sunday as well. Just a reminder. And I've been swaying away from him. I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be more like a 60-40 split, 65-35 split with Ray Davis. I think he's going to be the guy at 15 and in. For sure. Between the 20s, I think that's where they're going to get James Cook because he's the guy that every time you hand him the ball, he threatens to take one to the house. But Ray Davis, I think he's going to be the guy that is going to be getting, if he gets 6 rushing touchdowns this year, I will not be shocked.
Yeah. I agree completely. John Robert in here mentioned he thinks Shakir is a sleeper, and a lot of the reading and rankings that I've been looking at, he's actually ranked in the 30s, 40s in wide receivers. In some cases even lower. Keon Coleman is ranked higher than him or Samuel, which just blows my mind, and that tells me that a lot of these fantasy so-called experts are not paying attention to what's going on.
I don't think it's that. I think they see him as the red zone threat outside of Dalton Kincaid. And I agree. I think that Keon Coleman's rookie year is going to look a lot like his last year at Florida State, where it's going to be 50 catches, 600 yards, and 8 touchdowns, something like that.
And so I think if that's what it is.
Oh, me too.
Year. Yeah,
that's lovely. That's a great baseline to start at. So I think, just talking fantasy, that's why they have him rated so high, is because touchdowns count so much more. To where he's gonna the touchdown. They're gonna need 6 catches just to count for one of his touchdowns. So if say Shakir only gets three touchdowns and 1,000 yards, if he doubles that, that's a pretty even split right there.
How many? I think Shakir had 3 last year, didn't he? Total?
Something like that, yeah.
Maybe 2. It wasn't a lot.
No.
Dalton
Kincaid only having 2 last year surprised me. That surprised me. I mean, there was so many more that he could have had. He had so many great plays that he caught at the 20. He got tackled at the 5. It's
yeah.
And I think just being a rookie and still having some of that baby muscle and the baby fat on him, I think as he gets strong, as he gets bigger and stronger, that he'll be no problem breaking those tackles because they really were just ankle tackles.
Yeah, there were some close ones, and I expect that he's probably going to at least double his touchdown numbers as well. Really quick before we get out of here, let's touch on some of these injuries because I know there's some comments here bringing it up. Mike Edwards, it sounds like he's getting back out there a little bit. Some of the team drill stuff going on. He's not full-blown practicing yet.
Yeah, he did.
Colt Bishop, same
today he
thing.
Did.
No rep because all I saw was team drills and
he ran 11.
That's all they were doing too.
He ran 11 on 11 and 7 on 7.
Okay, that's a good thing. And Cole Bishop is getting back out there as well. It sounds like Samuel will probably most likely be good to go for the week 1 opener. So we were still, I mean, I'm personally still a little concerned about the injuries just because so many of them are happening already. We haven't even played a game yet. And the way the last 2 years have gone in terms of injuries, there's some PTSD there for me. But it is looking like in the last few days that things are kind of back on the upwards trend a little bit.
So right off the bat, Curtis Samuel has been the one that I've been least worried about because he's so instrumental to what this team wants to do this year. That I think that he had a little nick, a toe turf. So he's like, all right, my foot's kind of sore. And they're like, nope, it's done. Done. Not shut him down. And he and Josh are already on the same page. We all saw the camp highlights, the OTA highlights that he and Josh were making already. Yeah. So clearly they are in a good spot, and they trusted enough to where, no, just shut him down, let him be ready for week 1. And to me, that's kind of what these injuries. They're soft tissue injuries, so it's kind of, when you work out in a while, you haven't worked out, and all of a sudden you're sore because you haven't used these muscles in a long time. Now, I know these guys train in the off season. Training's a lot different than playing your sport. It's a lot different. So I'm thankful there's soft tissue injuries. Milano's the only one that's out because how many times, on the first day of preseason, do we all get that Twitter notification? So-and-so tore their ACL on the first snap of the preseason, or this and that. And knock on wood, that really hasn't been the case, and especially for the Bills. We've lost Matt Milano, but he is expected to be back later in the season. Other than that, it's just kind of like a 2 to 4 week. Now, it's a crucial 2 to 4 week, but it's still preseason. If they just stay off it and McDermott's comfortable with where they're at scheme-wise, then it's more so all precautionary. Yeah, that's just the hopeless optimistic in me.
Also, so Taron Johnson was held out. Sounds like it was more precautionary. I think McDermott called it soreness. Terrell Burgess had a hamstring. Not that that's a really big concern right now. I think he's more than. I think that guy's just a camp body, to be honest. But MVS is another one whose name McDermott mentioned might be ready and good to go for week 1. Personally, I hope he's not on the roster come week 1, but that's.
Well, I was going to say, him saying that ruins your hopes and dreams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And look, yes, if he goes out there and he catches a 80-yard touchdown bomb, I'll be the first one off the couch jumping and screaming and yelling. But I know there's going to be an 80-yard bomb that he's wide open for, and he's going to drop it.
Right.
But, you and I have said this multiple times. At the end of the day, I don't care who's on the field. Just win. Just be productive. Do what you got to do and for this team to win football games. And if that's MVS, I am excited for it. I have nothing personal against anybody on the roster, or quite honestly, anybody in the league other than Tyreek.
Not anymore.
And that guy. Huh?
You now don't have beef with anybody on the roster. Last couple of years, you had some personal beef with somebody who was on the roster. And I think we can make that public now. Since neither he or his brother is neither he or his brother are with us anymore.
He or his brother.
Your boy Jordan Poyer.
Oh. Look, I have nothing personal against Jordan Poyer. Yes, for whatever reason, I made some comments about the team needing to get younger and faster, and that's why they moved on from Poyer. His brother, didn't like that. He blocked me. But Jordan himself blocked me a couple of years ago, which I have no idea why. No clue. To this day, I still don't know why. He has since unblocked me, in case anybody's curious.
That's because our boy Spence hooked us up.
Yeah. But I would still like to know, and maybe we could get Jordan Poyer on the show someday, and I could ask him.
Next time I'm in South Beach, I'll go knock on his door.
Yeah. We'll just pick up the phone. I got him on speed dial. But no, outside of Tyreek Hill, I cannot stand that guy. He's a terrible person, but I don't hold grudges or personal issues with anybody on personal levels. when it comes to your game and how your football, that's where, guys like Stephon Diggs, we all know, I've been pretty vocal about him especially for the last year about, how he's behaving and his actions and whatnot. But yeah, John, let's get back. Let's get back to this. A couple of things here. Let's see. What do we got? I can't talk now. John Roberts says, I bet Dawson Knox has a better season than some expect. I do, from what I've read. He's had an excellent camp, possibly the best camp of his career to date. It's going to be really interesting to see how this offense kind of meshes both of these two tight ends together. I know, kind of going to that, I've been very vocal also about my thoughts on Kincaid and Shakir and him reaching 100+ receptions. And a lot of people will say no because Dalton Kincaid is there. I would be, again, careful with that. Looking at a lot of fantasy football drafts, Kincaid is a top 10. Some even have him top 5. I would be leery of that because of Dawson Knox. I think Dawson Knox is going to play a bigger role in this offense than people think.
I'm still taking him in the 6th round, 5th round.
You're taking who in the 6th round?
Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, I think he's going to be gone before then.
Well, lately I've been able to get him in about the 5th round. Now these are Joe Schmo public leagues, but fantasy wise, I think he's going to be like one of the top 5 tight ends. I can't believe we turned this into a fantasy podcast.
This is what happens in the preseason. You can only talk so much about preseason, and then you got to shift.
This wasn't even planned. Of course, none of this show was, but I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be the 100. I think he's going to be the 100 reception guy with about 8 touchdowns and probably like 800-ish yards. I won't be surprised when there's not a single 1,000-yard receiver on the Bills this year while Josh Allen throws for over 4,000 yards.
It's possible.
Absolutely
possible.
Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid, minimum, are all going to get 500 yards. So there's 2,000 right off the bat. Throwing James Cook, Ray Davis, Dawson Knox, Quentin Morris, all these other guys as secondary players, add on another 2,000 right there. And that's just the simple math on the low side for the starters. So I think that's going to be this offense's weapon this year is going to be the versatility and not the star power.
We should throw it out there on Twitter and ask the question, because I think it'd be kind of fun if we had at least one show in the next couple of weeks that was dedicated solely to fantasy football, and not just how it relates to the Bills, but all total. So I don't know if people would listen to that or not, but we got 2 weeks before the season starts. After this weekend, we need something to talk about, right?
Right. I agree.
We're going to have some
hibernation, if not.
Yeah. I do have a couple of drafts. We've got one with you. I've got one with my family. So we're going to have some fantasy football draft or teams to kind of talk a little bit about. But I might put that out there. Maybe I'll put that out there on Twitter and our Facebook page and just ask the question. If enough people say, yeah, we'll check it out. Maybe we'll do that because, like I said, we need some content over the next couple of weeks. So Mike did confirm earlier in the show, the 27th, I think it was, is roster cutdown date, which is Tuesday, which is perfect. So that gives us Monday night to talk about it. So Monday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, we will go over our roster projections in our 53-man roster. Thoughts on that? Do we want to do our own, or do we want to kind of talk about just each individual position together? How do you want to do that?
Oh, let's each bring our own. I'm curious to see who's where.
All right.
And where
he's gone. I'm cutting him.
I can't wait to cut Shavers.
Like I said, as much as I don't really want MVS on the roster, I do think he makes the roster. But we'll do that. So we'll both come Monday night with our own roster projections. Anybody who's listening, put your own together and bring it up. We'll talk about it on the show as well. We're going to go ahead and bounce and get out of here. I've not had dinner yet. I am starving. So let's get out of here. Mike, you got anything you want to add?
Me or Mike?
You. Mike's
No,
just back
I'm
in the
good.
background laughing.
I'm good.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. We will see you all on Monday night. Have a great weekend. Good luck on hopefully we get through the Saturday's game without any more significant injuries. And go Bills.
Go Bills.